That's all, pretty much all I ever need. Hi, I'm Miltonchang of Bonsaiheirloom in California, sunny and not too hot, warm. So today let's do the Q&A first. The first question is from Tammy Chamberlain. Thank you for the video. She has never done bonsai. I think I understand them better. Can I grow, I'd love to have one indoor. Does bonsai have to be kept outdoor? Any tips on care for indoor bonsais? Well, you know, if you are talking about indoor plant, it's really more like a house plant. Most of them are from subtropical or tropical regions under forest, heavy canopy, so that they grow in shade and nice and hot and warm and humid, so very moist. And that's for houseplant. But for most of the trees that we use for bonsai, they're outdoor regular trees like elm tree, and they're landscaping trees, and they grow outdoor and they grow in full sun. For example, I had a pine tree and I tried to grow it in sort of partial shade, and it declined over 5 or 6 years. It just doesn't work well. So I think it's not possible to really grow a bonsai indoor per se. On the other hand, if you grow 2 or 3 or 4 bonsai outside and take one in and display where you want it to be 1 or 2 weeks at a time and take it out after that, they should work fine. Because just think of it this way, the tree in your garden can be totally with no sun, raining for a month, and they don't die, so they should be fine. So again, bonsais are intended for outdoor because that's the nature of those trees, but you can certainly play around with nature to keep them inside occasionally for a period. And this person says, I would like to take a trip from time to time, and sometimes could be quite long. How do I keep my bonsai? You mentioned about putting in a pot of water. Can that last for a couple of weeks or a couple of months? Well, obviously not, because it will be too wet in the beginning and too dry later on. So I think you should just invest $25 and buy a timer and do it that way, so you don't have to worry about it. So this question is that you live in California, and the recent heat wave is very hard to keep trees wet and moist, and especially for the smaller trees in smaller pots. So what do you do? Well, obviously, if you're around, watering your plants multiple times a day, keep in mind it's not about watering. It's about keeping the soil moist. Never let it dry out. Once the soil is dried out, you can water it. The water runs right through. It doesn't get absorbed, and then the tree really dries out. Seeming you think you did it, but you really didn't. So I would suggest you water your smaller bonsai frequently, and then the possibility of putting in soaking pots and rotate them. Take it out every once in a while to dry out, in a sense to not be soaking wet. And I think that's the way I would handle it. I grow a maple tree rapidly in the spring, and the leaves are green-brown now because it's 100 degrees in the summertime. I water twice as before, but still it dries out. Could it be it's heat now in the summer? I live in Texas, southeast Texas. Well, Southern California gets pretty dry and hot in the summertime. And I have seen people growing beautiful, beautiful green maples. Not so much red leaf maples, but green Japanese maples, really beautifully green throughout the summer by watering a lot. Even though the air may be dry, but having plenty of water would do. So I don't know. If it's in South Texas, that could be pretty more severe. That I will put them, grow them in partial shade, like under big trees, and then water them a lot. It should probably be pretty much green all year round. But sometimes when you dry out a hot, dry spell, you can almost defoliate somewhat, and then you let the new leaves grow out. That means trim off a little bit of the old branches, and the new leaves should come out very quickly. Can I deduct that it's better to repot oak in summer rather than spring. What's better? Thank you. Well, I think as a general rule, it's best to repot your plants when the leaves are gone so that there's less water loss due to the root loss to compensate for the root loss. So I think generally springtime is the best time to repot your plants because that's when the new leaves will come out and it will regulate it by the rapid growth. The speed of the growth will be regulated by the amount of roots it has. So it's very natural compensator for. On the other hand, evergreen trees, which this live oak is, you can pretty much repot them at any time of the year. And just have to remember to compensate the root loss, whatever amount you cut off the fibrous roots, compensate by cutting off the branches to compensate for the potential water loss, moisture loss. I might add, the oak tree I chopped up 2 weeks ago, I went and looked at it yesterday and it was full of new buds. The new buds were already this long, beautiful green new leaves, that quick. And that's because the roots are very actively sucking up the water and feeding the leaves. So yes, you can repot, as shown, you can repot a live oak tree and most evergreen trees in the summertime. But again, spring is the best time. You may remember we cut up this oak tree 2 weeks ago. And none of these existed. That's how much they grow in 2 weeks after I put it back in the pot. And if I turn around, you can see how much growth it has come out compared to how bare it looked after I done it. And that was the front I was gonna choose from this angle. So anyway, I just wanna show you the trees grow very quickly. And in fact, I will not touch it for 3 months. So these will be this tall because this will strengthen the tree by feeding the tree and then thicken the trunk. Not that it needs any thicker, but it keeps the tree healthy and stronger. And then I'll clip it again. It will be very bare and it'll come out again. I would say after 3 times or after 3 years, it'll look fantastic. It showed the ramification and therefore the age. And that's how you gradually create a bonsai, in this case, from a garden tree into a nice bonsai that, it will be head turning. People say, it's really a nice bonsai. Let's keep going. Thank you. What pruning shear do you use? Great video, thank you. I've been looking for bonsai tools. Which tools would be amazing to see a video about tools. Well, I ran through a lot of tools. I don't buy expensive tools. I think they are overly priced once they put a name bonsai on it. I like stainless steel because then I can abuse them by leaving them out and they won't rust and so forth. And if they break or if they don't work that way, I just throw them out and buy new ones. What I found is that the mechanical tools, the shop tools, the hand tools that you use, that you buy at Home Depot and so forth, a lot of them are very good. And Home Depot, for example, has quite a number of clippers that are decent. And if you want to be very specific, want to use really the right tool for the right job, which I don't think is critical, I suggest you go to a woodworking shop where they sell all kinds of specialized tools, and you can really go deep into that. And if you find something really useful, please feed us back to educate the rest of the community. I think I will appreciate it. You ask a lot about tools, so let me go over these that I use quite frequently. There's any kind of saw. In this case, I bought it from Home Depot, and it's a folding saw. It's quite sharp, and it's a small size for cutting small branches for bonsai. And this is one of the stainless steel tools I bought from a website I think the cheapest place to get them is Timo or AliExpress. if you buy a set, which is fairly nice to have a complete set, averages to about $15 a tool. Used to be these things cost like $50 each. And so that's a very good one. Stainless steel, it should last very long. It's very sharp, well made. And this is a tool for clean out soil. That's from Husky, and it's quite handy. And this one is some more made specially for bonsai, for combing out soil. Now this one I use the most, and you can see I can cut quite thick branches if I kind of wiggle around a bit. This is a stainless steel cutter, and it costs about $7 or $8, including shipping. If you buy it from AliExpress or Temu, I think it's almost twice the price on Amazon. I don't take good care of it. If it gets dull and gets left out too long, I throw them out and get a new one. So I, in fact, buy quite a few to have around, so I don't have to ever run out of cutters when I can find them. So anyway, that's all, pretty much all I ever need. And for cutting the thick roots, you remember I used the reciprocal saw. That's electric, and that's very useful. So that's pretty much it. The question is about what kind of wire can I use, and alternative to the aluminum wire, and what can I use to seal the wound of my cuts. Okay, I think any kind of wire would do just for anchoring, right? Just tie it, and hopefully you remove it before it girds the branch. Let me tell you one wire that I particularly like. If you take some of these electrical wires, inside there's 3 or 6 or 8 strands of thinner wires that's coated on the outside with a layer of plastic. What I found, and I use a regular tie knot, and what I found is that if you put some WD on it, in the sense of the lubricant, you can pull a wire through and pull it, and it slides, so you can adjust how far you want to pull the wire very nicely. So these are the kind of wire, black, red, and white, and green, and so forth. You can strip from a thicker wire strand. And then what I do is I do the normal, just pretend this to be a rope, and I tie a knot at the end. I think there's a name for this knot, but I think you know what it is. So I can then take a branch, for example, this branch. For example, I want this branch to come down a little more, and this is very stiff. It's hard to pull it. And so what I will do is I will put some protection around it, as I've done in the past, so it doesn't gird the branch. I can put it here. Now I can start pulling. I push down a bit and pull it. You see, I can pull it gradually, let's say once or twice every month. And to make this slip easier, I can put some WD-40 or some water here as lubricant, and I can push it to any desired length as I want. And then I can just do the standard knot. And so this is a very good anchor wire. See, they will stay put. Now I can take this and cut it. And that's the beginning of the pad that we talk about for junipers. So for example, like this would be like a little bit distracting. So to be on the safe side, I cut off a little bit less for now and cut off more later or cut off the entire thing. And then this one, I can cut back as well. you can have this branch come down a little bit more later, and to provide you this hole, in the sense this void, to cover this void like a pad. And then this, you see how this branch looks nice? So that's what you do, and this anchor wire is a very efficient way to do it. And most people think you have to leave it on it for a long time. I would say a month or two is enough. It may bounce back a little bit, and you can do it at a different location so as not to gird the tree. And you just do this gradually. I'll do this tree in the next couple of weeks to show you. By the time when I'm done, it will look reasonable. I prune them back so severely. These are all pointed needle juniper needles, but eventually they become the California juniper regular. The scale kind of a needle is really beautiful. So this is actually a California juniper. It doesn't look it, but it is. That's what it is. And so as far as the sealing the wound, I really don't seal the wound. But on the other hand, you can use anything. You know, you can use chewing gum or special seals, but eventually it will heal over anyway. So I don't seal them. And if it rot, it makes it looks like more natural, like what happens in nature. So do whatever you like. Anything will work. Any kind of gummy kind of a thing to seal should be fine. So here's a bonsai that shows the extreme case of what happens to a wound. So here's a wound. The branch was cut off, and how it heals over, it rot through, and it heals over, looks really natural. Now the extreme example is on this side. You can see it's totally rotten, and it's starting to heal on the edges. And I will eventually carve this out to make it more like a double trunk. But the point is that this was a tree that died off pretty much, and it's a stump. And I didn't know what to do with its round, so I chopped it. So this is half of it. And I didn't bother to seal it. It looks really natural. And that's what, you know, you will find in nature, and you say, wow, you know, look at this. So the point is that it's very forgiving. Don't worry too much about wounds, just let it be. That's what nature looks like. And this is, after I trim it, it'll be a really nice bonsai. And the next question is that it's really hard to find peat moss here in England. And what do you think about using coconut coir, I guess you pronounce it as? Well, I found coconut coir is really very good, but there are two kinds. You have to be a little careful. One kind is little lumps and kind of broken up into pieces. And those are not quite as good as the ones that are more powdery. That's almost like peat moss. What I found is that you can take one block and you can put it in a big tub and fill it with water, and it will expand to, you know, to a lot. And when you use it, you can take it out and squeeze out the water, and then use it to mix it with your topsoil. In fact, I think that is better than peat moss. Just imagine how difficult it is to get the peat moss wet again once it's dried out. But the coconut coir is actually can absorb water instantly. So I think that's really a much better thing to use than peat moss in your soil mix. So from now on, I will probably modify my standard mix to 1 part perlite, 1 part coir, and 1 part topsoil. And again, the topsoil can be builder sand or garden topsoil, in the sense of a topsoil from your garden, or anything like I use sandy loam to hold down the plant. With that, then I think we covered the soil mix pretty well. Yes, coconut coir is a good thing to use. This is an example of the coconut coir that we talked about, and this is the pulverized kind. And I put this one in here, and that's how much it came out to become. And look at this. This is really like peat moss, but it absorbs water a lot easier. So this is what I use from now on for doing my planter mix instead of peat moss. So I think this is a good example. Don't think of me as your teacher, but rather we are colleagues trying to experiment and trying to learn together. So give me feedback, what you know, and so we can together we can improve a community that's really can do some really beautiful bonsai that are creative and modern in the long run. I thank you, all of those that thank me, thanking the questions this week. It's really helpful for me to know what's of interest to you and what to share with the community. Eventually, I think this community can be very knowledgeable about every aspect of a bonsai after so many times of the Q&A. So I hope this video is helpful to you. Please like to encourage me, and also click to subscribe to our website so that we can notify you of any future video. So thank you very much. See you next week.